Hello there, this is a continuous coverage on WION World is One. We are glad you're watching. Thank you for joining us at this hour. Time now for Wild DNA, American Joker. Let's begin with the headlines. Iran's ambassador to the United Nations says 78 Iranian people killed and 320 wounded in first wave of Israeli strikes that hit about 200 targets, including nuclear facilities and air bases. Several loud explosions heard in eastern Tehran, with the Iranian media saying Khamenei and Tehran Pars neighborhoods being targeted as Israel launches a second wave of attacks in Iran. White House says U.S. President Donald Trump speaks with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after Israel struck Iran's military leadership and nuclear facilities and Tehran retaliated. Senior Iranian official tells CNN Iran will target military bases of any country that tries to defend Israel, as Tehran reserves the right under international law to respond decisively. Interceptions seen in the skies over Jerusalem and West Bank's Ramallah as Iran sent retaliatory strikes against Israel. One video showed a projectile landing in Tel Aviv. Buildings and vehicles damaged in Israel's Ramat Gan. Following missiles launched from Iran, rescue teams and paramedics evacuate residents who were stuck inside shelters at the buildings. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres calls for Israel and Iran to halt their escalating conflict after the two countries exchanged a barrage of missiles, says enough escalation, time to stop, peace and diplomacy must prevail. High-level multidisciplinary committee constituted for examining the causes that led to the crash of Air India flight in Ahmedabad. Panel to suggest comprehensive guidelines for dealing with such instances in the future. Stocks plunged Friday after Israel launched strikes on Iran, rattling markets and pushing Brent crude up over 7%. The Dow dropped nearly 770 points, with the tech stocks falling and defense shares surging amid rising geopolitical tensions.
struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program.
مهار بشه دارن سعی
Well, this is a continuous coverage. Let's begin with the latest. Missile sirens sound across north as IDF says new barrage launched from Iran. Sirens warning of incoming rockets sound in dozens of northern communities. The IDF says it identified rockets being fired from Iran. Once again, this is breaking news coming in from Israel, and we do understand that the IDF is claiming that missiles were fired from across the north as IDF says the new barrage launched from Iran. Sirens warning of incoming rockets sound in dozens of northern communities. The IDF says it identified rockets being fired from Iran. And earlier, the IDF had told Israelis to come out of the shelters because it was safe. But this is an ongoing retaliation between Iran and Israel. And we do understand that the missile barrage from Iran still continues. Israel says it will defend its country, whatever the situation is. And they also say that whatever country that defends Israel during their retaliation or during their barrage, they will be met with equal force. This is also, again, breaking news coming in from Israel, and we do understand that fire and heavy smoke billowed from Mehrabad airport in the Iranian capital early on Saturday, as local media reported a blast in the area. The local ISNA news agency shared a video showing columns of heavy smoke rising from the area of the airport in western Tehran, while Mahar news agency reported a blast there. Again, this is from Israel and Iran, and the latest is that fire and heavy smoke billowed from Mehrabad airport in the Iranian capital early on Saturday. As local media reported a blast in the area, the local ISNA news agency shared a video showing columns of heavy smoke rising from the area of the airport in western Tehran, while Mahar news agency reported a blast there. We do understand also that White House says that US President Donald Trump has spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after Israel struck Iran's military leadership and nuclear facilities, and Iran retaliated. Well, Iran launched a new wave of missile attacks on Israel with loud explosions heard in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Buildings and vehicles were damaged in Ramat Gan following the missile strike. Rescue teams and paramedics evacuated residents who were stuck inside shelters at the buildings. Now, according to the Israeli military, Iran fired fewer than 100 missiles and most were intercepted or fell short. Interceptions could be seen in the skies over Jerusalem and West Bank. Following the Iranian retaliation, air raid sirens sounded across Jerusalem. Sirens were activated across large areas of central and northern Israel, and explosions caused by interceptions and falling projectiles were heard. And that's according to a statement from the Israel Defense Forces. Now, according to the Israeli media, between 150 and 200 missiles were fired by Iran in 3 barrages. Israel continues to strike targets across Iran. Several loud explosions were heard in eastern Tehran. Iranian media also reported explosions on the northern and southern outskirts of Tehran and at Fordo, second major nuclear site, which had been spared in the first wave of the attacks. Israel's military said it was striking Iranian missile and drone launching sites. Air defenses were activated across Tehran and explosions could be heard in Isfahan. Shortly after the attacks, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the Iranian people directly, declaring that Israel's ongoing military campaign is not only aimed at neutralizing Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities, but also at supporting the Iranian people's aspirations for freedom. Netanyahu further warned Iran that more attacks were on their way.
We've taken out top military commanders, senior nuclear scientists, the Islamic regime's most significant enrichment facility, and a large portion of its ballistic missile arsenal. More is on the way. The regime doesn't know what hit them. They don't know what will hit them.
In response, Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei called the Israeli attacks a grave mistake and warned that the consequences will bring it to ruins. Khamenei further asserted that Israel has triggered a war and Iran will not allow it to walk away unscathed.
Life will become bitter for them, without a doubt. They should not think they struck and it's over. No, they started this and triggered a war. We will not allow them to walk away unscathed from the great crime they have committed.
Amidst mounting tensions, world leaders have called for restraint and a return to the path of peace and diplomacy. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres wrote on X, and I quote, "Enough escalation, time to stop." EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas urged both sides to exercise restraint and prevent further escalation. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer called for calm and a return to diplomacy. However, to Keir's President Erdogan, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, Pakistan Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar, and Saudi Arabia condemned Israeli strikes and accused Israel of violating international norms. Let's now talk to Giorgio Cafiero. He's the CEO and founder of Gulf State Analytics and a professor at Georgetown University. Mr. Cafiero, welcome to the program. This is a very sensitive matter. This is a very crucial time for both Israel and Iran. We do understand that the White House says that US President Donald Trump has spoken to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But who can really pacify the situation at this moment?
Thank you. Great to be on your network. You know, it's a lot easier to start a war than it is to decisively end the war on terms that are favorable for your side. I think that at this point, there is no single state that is in control of this situation. And that certainly includes Israel, and that includes Iran. I am not optimistic about de-escalation. I think we might be at the beginning of a war that carries on for quite a bit of time. I think that there will be certain actors, such as Russia, Qatar, maybe some others, who might try to play some mediation roles to try to de-escalate, find ways to open up dialogue through some back channels. But just to repeat, I am not optimistic about this conflict winding down anytime soon. I think mindful of what the Israelis did in Tehran and other parts of Iran on Friday morning, I think it's really clear that the Iranian leadership is determined to make Israel suffer. The Iranian leadership wants revenge, not de-escalation right now. And I think obviously on the Israeli side, there is a determination to really weaken Iran and to try to make Iran suffer a lot too. These are two states that are very, very heavily armed. There's a lot of domestic support on both sides for continuing this war. So I think this conflict, like I said, it could drag on for quite a while and result in a lot of death and destruction as it's going on.
Professor Cafiero, let's talk about the dynamics of this new-found war, because we do understand that Israel targeted nuclear facilities in Iran and this was going on amidst the negotiations between Iran and the United States. Let's start with the talks. How far do you think America will go to actually continue or progress with the talks amidst this war?
There seems to be a certain thinking among Trump administration officials that as a result of Israel's hundreds of strikes on Iran, that this is somehow going to bring the Iranians back to the negotiating table, and it's going to result in Tehran being willing to make more concessions to the United States. I think that that's a ridiculous way to understand what's going on right now. I think, to the contrary, Iran is not going to come back to negotiate with the Americans on the nuclear issue. There's growing support in Iran for developing a nuclear weapon. That is a really important point to keep in mind. I just simply do not think the Iranian leadership has much incentive to come back and negotiate with the United States. To be frank with you, for the foreseeable future, I think U.S.-Iran diplomacy is dead.
Professor Cafiero, let's talk about what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says. He says that Israel's ongoing military campaign is not only aimed at neutralizing Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities, we are still talking about the dynamics of this war, but also at supporting the Iranian people's aspirations for freedom. What do you think he means by that?
Well, Netanyahu and those around him want to see the Islamic Republic fall. They want to see regime change in Iran, and I believe from their perspective, the current conflict is an opportunity to make that happen. That language from Netanyahu is aimed at deepening the division between the Iranian government and segments of Iranian society that do not support their government. And I think here, the actions that Israel's government has been taking the past 24 hours or so can really backfire. And I think we need to consider the real possibility of this aggression against Iran resulting in the government in Tehran being able to rally more support and to rally Iranians behind the flag, including those who are not necessarily very supportive of the Islamic Republic.
Professor Cafiero, how much do you think the U.S. is involved in this war? Because there are some critics who say that Trump took the bait.
There are different theories about what the Trump administration had been intending all along. There are many analysts now who are very convinced that this was sort of fake diplomacy, camouflage diplomacy, if you will, where the U.S. was trying to get Iran to sort of soften up a little bit and to try to catch Iran off guard. But the whole entire time, according to this theory, the Trump administration was completely aligned with Israel and very much wanted Israel to carry out the attacks that took place on Friday morning. There is another theory that Trump genuinely wanted to pursue the path of diplomacy with Tehran, genuinely wanted a new nuclear deal with the Iranians, and that Netanyahu completely sabotaged those diplomatic efforts. I'll sort of wait to see some concrete evidence, obtain some more facts before stating, which theory is really the explanation of what actually happened. It's a bit unclear, but what we can say, though, is that it's very difficult to imagine Israel carrying out these strikes without a green light or at least some sort of a yellow light from Washington. I think that's pretty safe to conclude.
Let's talk about that yellow light, because I'm just curious. When President Trump says that he was informed about the strikes way before they happened, that's when Israel struck Iran, how much of an impact do you think that statement will be going forward?
Well, from Tehran's perspective, the United States is completely complicit in this aggression against Iran. And the IRGC and Iranian leadership have made that clear. So even if there has been an effort on the part of Marco Rubio and other officials to really emphasize that this was a unilateral action taken by Israel and that the U.S. the U.S. is coming to Israel's defense as the country is dealing with Iran's counter strikes and Iran's retaliation. There's no denying that from the Iranian perspective, this is really an American-Israeli operation or American-Israeli war on Iran. They, on the Iranian side, they will not see this as simply an Israeli action taken unilaterally. And this is obviously, bringing us back to the topic about any prospects for American-Iranian diplomacy. This is a point that we really need to keep in mind.
Professor Cafiero, stay with me. We have some breaking news coming in from Israel, and Israel Defense Forces has put out a post on X showing how Israelis are currently running for shelter in northern Israel as sirens sound due to another missile launch from Iran. Alerts have been activated in several areas of Israel following the detection of missiles launched from Iran. The IDF said in a post on X, the post said the Israeli Air Force was working to intercept and attack wherever necessary to eliminate the threat. It also urged the public to follow the instructions of Home Front Command as the defense is not hermetic. Once again, this is breaking news from Israel, and the IDF has put out a post on X showing how Israelis are currently running for shelter in northern Israel as sirens sound due to another missile launch from Iran. Alerts have been activated in several areas of Israel following the detection of missiles launched from Iran. The IDF said in a recent post on X, the post said the Israeli Air Force was working to intercept and attack wherever necessary to eliminate the threat. It also urged the public to follow the instructions of Home Front Command as the defense is not hermetic. Professor Cafiero, Iran says that whatever country supports Israel, they will be met with the same force as Israel. Your comments, briefly.
Well, Iran wants to see to it that Arab countries in the neighborhood do not play any role in undermining Iran's counterattacks and the retaliatory attacks waged by Tehran. Iran wants to, if you will, sort of intimidate countries into the neighborhood into either, if not outright supporting Iran, at least staying out of it. But, there are some Arab states that have normalized relations with Israel, such as Jordan, or some that have kind of de facto and unofficial relations with Israel. And based on some of the experiences from the attacks and counterattacks in April and October 2024, Iran is certainly sensitive to the fact that some of these Arab states played a role in helping Israel defend itself. And this is something that the Iranians are certainly sensitive to.
Mm-hmm. Professor Cafiero, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for talking to WION World is One today.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Global stocks took a hit while oil and gold surged after Israel targeted Iran's nuclear program installations in a huge escalation of tensions in West Asia. Wall Street closed with deep losses, with the S&P 500 losing over 1%. Global stock markets had just rebounded from a dip in April triggered by US President Donald Trump's tariff war. An index of global stocks hit a record on Thursday, climbing more than 20% from a low recorded in April. However, Friday's sell-off reversed some of the gains in global stocks. Within equities, energy stocks gained in pre-market trading. Chevron stocks and ExxonMobil advanced more than 2.5%. Defense contractors such as RTX and Lockheed Martin moved higher on expectations of elevated military spending. Global travel stocks were under severe pressure after several airlines cancelled flights and changed their routes to avoid Iran and Israel airspace. In commodities, crude surged to mark the biggest intraday jump since March 2022. US crude jumped as much as 14% before trimming the surge by about half. Gold soared on safe haven bets, hovering near its record high. The yellow metal rose as high as 1.5% to trade above $3,400 an ounce. This is World DNA. Thank you for watching. This coverage continues. You are watching WION World as One. Stay with us.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION's Business Master Series is an incredible experience. The questions are incredibly thought-provoking, and for me, they force me to introspect about what are the goals, what are the values that really govern the way we want to run our business, the way we want to be as a company, and where we want to be in 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at yowon.com.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
Welcome back to WION World is One. We are glad you're watching. This is a continuous coverage. I'm Eric Njoka. The headlines at this hour. Israeli military calls on residents to take shelter after detecting fresh missiles launched from Iran towards Israel. The military says Air Force is operating to intercept and strike where necessary to eliminate the threat. Interceptions seen in the skies over Jerusalem and West Bank's Ramallah as Iran sent retaliatory strikes against Israel. One video showed a projectile landing in Tel Aviv. White House says US President Donald Trump speaks with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after Israel struck Iran's military leadership and nuclear facilities and Tehran retaliated.
می‌کنید نیروهای امدادالنجات
and your historic legacy by standing up for your freedom from an evil and oppressive regime.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls on Iranians to unite against what he describes as an evil and oppressive regime, telling them Israel is engaged in one of the greatest military operations in history.
The time has come for you.
Iran's ambassador to the United Nations says 78 Iranian people killed and 320 wounded in first wave of Israeli strikes that hit about 200 targets, including nuclear facilities and air bases. Several loud explosions heard in eastern Tehran, with the Iranian media saying Hakimiyeh and Tehran Pass neighborhoods being targeted as Israel launches a second wave of attacks in Iran. Senior Iranian official tells CNN Iran will target military bases of any country that tries to defend Israel, as Tehran reserves the right under international law to respond decisively. High-level multidisciplinary committee constituted for examining the causes that led to the crash of Air India flight in Ahmedabad. Panel to suggest comprehensive guidelines for dealing with such instances in the future. Stocks plunged on Friday after Israel launched strikes on Iran, rattling markets and pushing Brent crude up over 7%. The Dow Jones dropped nearly 770 points,